That's what she said.
I
What I
can
could
hear
do.
everyone else perfectly fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's
Totally.
go and we'll make it work.
Oh
Let
yeah.
let me do one more check of my audio settings just to make sure I'm not.
I'm sure it'll
Uh,
be fine in the post or streamed
Everyone
version.
on YouTube, we're just working some things out. We'll be right
oh,
with
we're
you.
on YouTube. Hey,
Yeah.
everybody.
Oh, we are.
Holden, did
Hi.
that change anything?
That just happened like 2 seconds ago. So
Hey,
Holden, does this sound any
yay.
different now?
Yes.
That
Yes.
does. Okay, so the problem was I had original sound for musicians on.
Oh yeah.
Why
That's
would
it.
you have
Okay.
done that?
It's much
'Cause I am
clearer
one.
now.
You can't with you.
It's speaking of YouTube, Holden and I were just talking before we started about how cool it is that we have so many amazing musician listeners out there. There's like this whole subset of people who are probably about to join the YouTube call who
what
I
up,
have like
Hoop Vane? He's in.
Yeah,
there's
Poop
one of them right there.
Vane.
That was literally the guy we were talking about.
Vane.
Poop Fade. There's just so many of you who are like so talented, and it's really cool to know that we all have all these different interests and stuff, and we can come together over Alien, but then become friends about other stuff too. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. So we'll have
SpongeBob show.
Andie read the review last. That'll be the last thing before we get into it, right? Does that sound good?
Yes, and then the big humdinger curveball is going to be me remembering to do the producers at the end of the show. That's going to be
We'll
because
remember. I
we've
hope you
never done
remember.
that before.
And I'm
Just-
gonna record here.
Yes,
Yes, please record.
I need to do that too.
Okay. I'm editing
Okay,
this anyway. So.
I sent a request,
Mhm.
but I
You
need
ready?
to record
Oh,
as a backup.
I don't.
Okay,
yeah,
got
I
it.
don't see
Okay.
the record. Okay. You ready?
This is a shit show.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Welcome to
What?
Perfect Organism. Oh, what?
So good.
Off to a good start. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Happy New Year and welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I'm your host, Jaime Prater, and I'm joined by my co-hosts.
Patrick Green in 2026.
Happy New Year, Perry Chicos.
Andie Geek Girl.
Holden Wilhoit.
And Micah Green.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Welcome and welcome to a new year. We got so much cool stuff coming. It is the freaking anniversary of Aliens coming out. This is the 40th anniversary of Aliens. So
Ugh.
we have a lot to talk about with that. We're not going to get into it now, but lots to expect on that front. Lots of really cool stuff. This new producer tier that Jamie's going to talk about in just a moment, which has been blowing up and we're really excited about. We have lots of plans for that. We have a new in progress audio drama that is currently being pre-scored by myself and Kyle, who's a member of the team now as well, and is having its first rehearsal in just a matter of a couple days, which is really exciting. And so there's lots to look forward to. And it's all thanks to our patrons who are getting a shout out in this very moment. Once I get back to the tab, let's take a look back to January 2nd of 2026. Wow. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. So we got Danny Abassi, Peter Hoskin, Adrian Johnson, Paul X, McLegendface, Hudson's Extra Life, Sky Errand, and Jordan. And that was actually not January. That was since September. So thank you all so much for joining. And a extra special thank you to our new producers. We have some people also who have just joined at the producer tier, and you're all going to get a shout out at the end of the episode. And we're going to make that standard course of action. But a bunch of you upgraded to the producer tier since we made that announcement just a matter of days ago, and we're crazy thankful to you for doing that. And those include Gene McDonald, Justin Baker, Angel Cruz, Matt Bro, and Eric Poopvane Stevens. Thank you all so much for doing that. And I'm going to hand it back to Jamie to talk a little bit more about what that new tier entails.
Okay, yes. So we've introduced the producer tier on Patreon. What the producer tier is, it gives you a front and center view and participation with us here at Perfect Organism. And so it's not just, hey, you pay more money, you get to see more of us. We're going to have 2 shows a year where we feature our producers. We're going to hear feedback from you guys in terms of what you'd like to see us talk about, what's important to you. You have a front seat as a producer on the show that you get called out every show that we record. You're going to be called out at the end as a producer. You get a front seat at the projects that we're working on, which is Alien Apotheosis, our next audio drama, which Patrick said we're in rehearsal for. We're going to have that first rehearsals this week. If you would like, you can be a voice on that show because there's some tiny parts that we still need to cast for that. So there's a whole bunch of things that the producer tier involves, and those are just some of the highlights. So we definitely recommend, if you're interested in supporting us more, it's $12 a month. Go to perfectorganism.com/support and sign up there, or to go to Perfect Organism on Patreon and sign up there. And there's going to be more on that later, but until then, I'm going to hand it to Andie to read our 5-star review from Apple
Yeah.
or Spotify.
This one's from Apple, from Deviant Sky 4. This was on December 22nd. So thank you so much for giving us a review. The title is Maintained Integrity, and the review says, "This show has been around for a decade, and I only found it after Alien Earth released. I listened to their full coverage of the show, and when the series finale released, I went back to listen to the whole catalog of episodes. This show is unlike most pods I have found in that the integrity and format of the show have changed very little since the start. These people successfully champion their own opinions while also, I just lost it, while also driving the opinions of others to the front of the line to make the fandom feel completed within their conversations. Thank you for providing over a decade's worth of high quality content for a high quality franchise." So thank you so much for that.
That is awesome. That is really awesome.
That's
is
a really
so
good one.
nice.
Thank you, Deviant Sky.
That's
Before we
amazing.
continue, Patrick, there is something off about your audio. It sounds
Is it?
like it sounds like it's hot, like it's what do you call that term?
Now
when
it's too loud. It's clipping.
clipping. Thank you. Yes.
I'm trying to appease Holden, Mister. It's too quiet. I'm gonna turn it down a bit.
Holden's on
an
an IBM from
Just a
2002. I'm kidding.
That's true.
Can you still hear me now?
Guys, we just started. We
Yeah.
can't pick on Holden yet. All right.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can't.
I'm just on a dial-up computer from before Jamie was born.
That's true. 1822.
It's the size of a tennis court. So if you want to hear your own review, as we were just saying, go ahead and leave us one on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, if it allows for that. We're still not really sure, or like Facebook or kind of anywhere. We're trying to, do more of that. And we really like doing it. There's also, I don't want to like announce this or not, because we haven't really worked the details out, but we have things that we want to do giveaways with which we would like to do giveaways. So be on the lookout for that. We're thinking reviews might be one of the ways that we do that. Just we've been kind of like holding on to little things here and there for the last couple of years.
Lots of
Posters.
them.
Vicious.
Posters, but we also have some patches. We have some other things. We may even have a couple of board games. So we're thinking about things we can do with that, and we're thinking reviews might be a way. We'll announce that before we do. But another one would be YouTube subscribers. I think it's safe to say that if we hit 10,000 on YouTube, we're giving some like real stuff away. So help us get there. That won't go to like the 10,000th subscriber. That'll go to like somebody that will be randomly, chosen via comments when we get there. But also, our subreddit and things like that too. So stay on the lookout for that. And yeah, it's really exciting. Anyway, to get to tonight's conversation, Jamie and I had a blast with this episode a couple weeks ago when we recorded, and we didn't know if it was going to work because we thought maybe it was similar to the one that we had done like a month earlier. But it ended up actually going in really interesting directions. And I got to say, Jamie, that was like one of my favorite episodes that we've recorded in a long time.
Agreed.
It just felt like just classic fun PO conversation, which is nice after a year where things have been very turbulent and very, like, I like this, I don't like this, blah, blah. What we're really parsing tonight is what makes an alien film. And again, the question kind of at the heart of this is, when something comes out, people often put it in terms of this is or this is not Alien, or this is my Alien, this is not my Alien, this fits and this doesn't fit. And yet there are other things, like, for example, a video game called Chronos: The New Dawn, which everybody should be playing, and half of the team is playing right now.
Yes.
Like that's something that, is not an Alien story, but it feels immensely. And I think Perry, who's also beaten it, and Micah can vouch for this, and Holden, who's in progress, feels very Alien in a lot of ways. And so why is that? Like, what are the themes? What are the atmospheric things happening that make something feel like Alien? And that's kind of where we're at tonight.
So Patrick and I had the floor for the first episode, and certainly we're going to be including our opinions in this one, but we would love anyone to start in terms of what do they feel like. And I feel like again, just to frame this, this isn't like what is it for you? I feel like in some ways it's an objective question. What makes Alien Alien?
I can
Yeah,
go first. Oh, you want to go, Perry? Oh, I'll just
ladies
go quickly.
first. Micah,
Aw,
you do it. Yeah.
thanks. So I'll go quickly. Because just thinking about it, because this is a conversation I've had 1,000 times before there was a perfect organism in my life podcast with Patrick. And I think that if I could boil it down to the most simple thing, and this is probably like very surface level, I'm sure I'll dig up a bunch of different things. Um, it's about for me and what I take from the alien universe is that humans are not in control, plain and simple. Um, and it's in a varying amount of ways. Like they're essentially we're not the top of the food chain on like the barest of wavelengths there. And there's something so um chillingly terrifying about that one thing where they all realize at some point in the movies that you're not in control anymore and you likely are going to be fighting for your life. If not, you're not making it off of the ship, at least. So I think a lot of what Alien comes down to me is that um the very harsh reality that we're not in Kansas anymore and we're not in charge, you know? And that's where I'll start it off with.
Yeah, very similar to what I was going to add, Micah, and very well said. I think it's a couple things for me, and I like that you brought up thinking about Alien before there was a Perfect Organism podcast in my life, because I would very much watch these films religiously, and for me it was Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and I think there, on top of what you said, I think there's also this piece of like escapism, right? That we watch these films. I mean, you watch a lot of sci-fi films to be taken away, be taken someplace you've never been before. Um, and you put your trust in that, in the storytelling, in what you're about to invest your time into for the next 2 hours, right? And you're like, I want to be somewhere else right now. And what made and makes Alien, I think, so intriguing and exciting to watch and get and sort of get sucked in is that we're exploring something that's unknown, right? Very straightforward, straightforwardly, is that a word? Alien, to us as a viewer, as watching something, right? And so I find that Patrick, just you bringing up Chronos, phenomenal game. Yes, to plug that, but it's the exploration of something unknown and something that you don't know is safe or not. And there's like some adrenaline, right? That gets pumped into that. It's like skydiving, jumping out of a plane. Um, when you saw Alien for the first time, I feel like the derelict scene was very much that, right? And then Kane gets face hugged, and it's like this, it does not stop, and you're on this ride that you can't control. And yeah, to your point, Micah, it's great. It's like the humans aren't in control anymore, and we always feel like we do. And I feel like that's a concept in humanity, in the brain of humanity, to feel like we're always in control. So to lose that control is entertaining to watch, right? When you can have like a sideshow uh, seat to that, and get to see how that might pan out, whether it's terrifying, horrifying, beautiful, um, or not. I think what's great is you think about films like Arrival pops into my head, very similar, but the ending is not horrific or just sad. I'll put it that way. I mean, I get, depending on how you think of it. To me, it's not. It's a beautiful film. Annihilation, right? Like, uh, I had a few others, but I'll just say those two for now. Those are things that are fresh, they're new, they're original, and they create this world building that takes us on this ride that forces us to escape, but forces us to sort of deal with some horrific choices that humanity might make when they're not in control. And that's what I love about Alien.
So I was fortunate enough a couple of days ago, I had the opportunity to watch Alien and Alien Romulus back to back with my dad and my stepmom. They had seen Alien before, but this is my first time watching Romulus with them and my first time watching Alien with them. Um, and after both movies were over, my stepmom looks at me and asks, what is it that you love about these movies? What makes them so special to you? And that really got me thinking. Um, I think first and foremost, my favorite thing about all of these films, honestly, is the tactility of them, is if that's a word. And everything feels like even through like Resurrection and Covenant, everything feels like you can reach out and touch them through the screen. Every button, every sound feels like they're real, feels like they're existing. And the same goes for the characters. Um, Parker is my favorite character in any Alien property so far. Parker feels like a friend. He feels like someone that I've known. He feels like someone that I've had conversations with, someone that I work with. And and especially through the first movie, all those characters feel so real. They feel so personable. They feel so intentional. And that's something that, for one, you don't see very often in films anymore. I don't think there are absolutely some great films with great characters, but it's not something that's so common anymore. And just that feeling of like texture and intention to every detail is just amazing. And I've said this before, the moniker of alien for me has never been so much about the alien creature itself and is more about the alien nature of the universe that Dan O'Bannon and Ridley Scott and Giger created. Everything is like uncomfortably comfortable. You know, there's the whole like womb motif that we talk about a lot where everything feels like natural, everything feels organic, but at the same time you feel out of place. You just feel uncomfortable. And that's just so special. It's something that I've never felt recreated in a film, game, music, any form of art since the first time I watched Alien. So that's what Alien is to me.
Yeah, I want to echo all of you in that every one of the points that you brought up, I absolutely feel deeply. The characters, right? The lack of control. I thought about this a lot because I knew we were doing this for at least a week, and I've been thinking about it every day. I re-listened to your episode twice just to kind of get a feel for what I wanted to say. Um, and just going back to what Micah said about the body horror. So I know you guys talked a lot about, and we've talked a lot in general about this, about the unknown, right? The terror of oblivion and what's out there, and the fact that, there's this whole vastness that we will never understand, and that's terrifying. And then I thought about it and sort of put myself in the mind of Ripley because I think she speaks to all of us. And part of me views the opposite as well. So Alien is all to me the first one definitely about the unknown, but the subsequent films I think are terrifying because it's precisely what we know is going to happen that is utterly horrific. And Ripley knows. And in each subsequent film, her terror builds to the point where we get to the third one, and half the movie, she absolutely knows her fate. She knows what's inside her. She knows the end results. She knows how it's going to end. She powers through. And to me, sometimes knowing is even more terrifying because it's living with that knowledge for a long time, right? Sometimes the characters who don't know anything and they just die a quick death. I was thinking about that Alien Earth scene in the party where they just are annihilated. There's no terror there. They're dead in 2 seconds. The terror is being in that cocoon and sitting there for hours and knowing that that egg is going to open up at some point, right? Hudson doesn't get scared until he sees what these things are going to do. He sees half of his crew dead. And so I was thinking about it a lot, and I kind of related it to body horror too, and like pregnancy. I know I've mentioned this a lot, but I've been pregnant, I've had kids, and I was thinking like, because I saw a post once where it's like, why do women get pregnant? We know it's horrific. Like, we know it hurts. We know it's bad. And it's beautiful. But there are times when you're terrified because you're like, oh my God, I know how this is going to end and it's going to be great. But getting there is going to be tough, you know? And so part of what scares me is knowing, oh shit, this thing's coming out and it's going to be horrific and bloody and awful. And it's like being on a scary ride and you know you're going to be terrified, but you do it anyway. And so that's what I love about this too. So when we talk about all the new things, I think the most terrifying part of Alien Earth was the image, was Teocelis, because we knew, at least maybe not in the beginning, it was the unknown. And then once we knew it was capable of, like that sheep was the most terrifying thing to me because I know that it's controlling that thing. I know it's watching. I know it's doing something that's gonna not end very well. So that's the stuff I love too. It's both. It's the unknown, and then when you do know, it's horrifying. So
The Midge
that's
is just continuing to be eternally relevant. I love how many of us gave and made and received Christmas presents that were iMitch related this year. A couple comments from the chat I want to just highlight. Poop Vane says, when I was younger, the Xeno is what made the Alien movies alien. Nowadays, I think it leans more towards the mystery of the unknown. Each movie also has at least one scene that really unsettles me. And then Sky Errand says, like an exposure of how frail we are, a small fleshy being in a big, impressive ship in a vast open space, just oysters above it all, technologically advanced oysters. Very well said. And I've been thinking about, other things. And a lot of this comes from playing, Micah and I are about to start our fourth playthrough of Chronos. And I swear we're not going to talk about this video game this whole night, but it's really on my mind a lot, obviously. And we are doing a Patreon episode on it. But the reason why it's on my mind with this conversation specifically is because it's a great case study in what makes something that's not explicitly an alien project feel like one. And I think for me, part of it, and again, I don't want to spoil things, comes from this idea that we kind of go through life depending on things making sense. Like, it's very important that we have names for things, that we have hierarchy, that we have order, that like we know what's safe and what's not safe, that we know what our personal narrative is, that we have memories. Like, this is my kind of creation myth. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. This is who I love. This is what I care about. This is what I fear. And we kind of reinforce those things through our whole lives. And they build up to this sense of this is who I am. And this is the world through which I navigate. I know what the dangers are. I know that there are explicit dangers and implicit dangers, but they're things that I know. And because I know them, I can exert some degree of control over them. And I think what Alien does so beautifully, and to Andy's point, this kind of changes as it goes on, but in terms of Alien in particular, Alien is kind of the breakdown of that in a really beautiful sense. It's this like gradual series of events that make reality feel less like it's something objectively true, and more like something that we kind of constructed to feel safer, you know? Like I think, especially because you look at how banal the beginning of Alien is, like these are truckers in space. We always say like they're just towing oil shit around, you know, like they're coming home after a job. It is the most believable, relatable blue collar thing that if we didn't personally do ourselves, all of us have family members or friends who have had jobs like this, you know. Like I drove past a site just today that I looked up and I was like, I wonder what these people actually do, because there's all these smokestacks, you know, and I always drive by this thing and it's like, what is it? It's a refinery for oil and for processing like rocks. So it's like, you know, they make gravel and sand products and things. And I was like, that is the exact type of work that Wayu was doing, you know, via the Nostromo and its, you know, and its sister ships. It's very like, it's very easy to understand, right? It's very literal. And all of a sudden, these people, like these people who are towing oil around or towing, you know, minerals and refineries around, are exploring a planetoid that they've never seen before, that has different atmospheric conditions and contains this structure that looks like nothing any human has ever seen before, and contains life within it that they have no precedent for, that contains pathogenic things that they've no idea how to deal with. That instantly, what do we have? We have like the breakdown of hierarchy, right? We have the control of the ship gets screwed up because like the commanding officer is off of it, and all of a sudden it's like, well, do we let them back on or do we not? Who's actually in charge at this point? Like, do we keep going by the rule book? So even as early as that in this movie, you're seeing people wrestling with this idea of like, we don't really know what is like factually supposed to be happening, right? Like, this is maybe not exactly what we think. And then we're confronted, you know, with obviously, as we talk about all the time, all of these just incredibly strange events that the first time you're seeing them, you know, if you're watching the movie for the first time, or if you're experiencing it as a crew member on the Nostromo for the first time, is just a series of bewilderments, right? It's like, what the fuck happened to Kane at the dinner table, at the table? Like, why is this creature gigantic all of a sudden? Like, why is it sloughing its skin off? Like, is this the same animal? Like, what happened with the face hugger? Like, why did it die all of a sudden? Why is it burning a hole through the ship? Like, why? Like, what are all of these things happening that we just don't have a precedent for? And then when we finally get the reveal of like the monster itself, the fact that you can't see what it's looking at, and I go back to this all the time, is to me like it's like the perfect heart of what I'm talking about, because you can't see what it wants. You know, you can feel what it wants and you can kind of assume what it wants, but that's you anthropomorphizing it. Like, that's you putting yourself there, right? You're saying, well, if it did have eyes, it'll be looking at me and kind of licking its lips right now. But like, it's not doing that. It wants more than that. And we don't have any precedent like on Earth for creatures that behave that way, you know? And of course, Aliens comes along. I love Aliens. Don't stop giving me shit. I love Aliens. But Aliens comes along and it gives us the hierarchy again, right? And it says like, oh, it's a hive and this is how they kind of operate. But if you just take Alien on its own, there's like no answers to anything. I mean, it just does not make sense. And that dissolution of reality, that loss of objectivity, to me is what's so enduringly beautiful about the way the narrative of Alien unfolds. And I think it's what, when I look at the things that I get most obsessed with, things like Chronos, things like Silent Hill, things like Annihilation, things like Jeff Vandermeer's books, like the things that I become totally hooked on, it's things like that. It's things where you start off with these very kind of clear, you know, guardrails around everything, and then they just don't mean anything by the end. And that is it's simultaneously two beautiful things. It is liberating as fuck because all of a sudden it kind of doesn't matter anymore. Like, we're in a new reality, and it's terrifying as fuck because there's no precedent for it. And I think, to everybody's point about how the unknown is a big part of it, that's my very long-winded way of getting back to that. I agree with you.
I think objectively, I've been much like Andie, I've been thinking about this quite a bit and thinking about this in context of everything, certainly with Alien Earth and in Romulus. But going back to the original Alien film, what set it up, and I think about the structure of it and what was scariest about that film. Certainly, yes, the creature, yes, for sure. And we've talked about this before on our show throughout the years, but for me, and I think in terms of the structure of the story, you have this creature on this ship eventually that gets out, body horror, all of those scary things. But you have this computer system representing this company that is on there saying to Ash, and then eventually to Dallas, and then Ripley finds out that you guys are expendable. We need this thing above all things. This thing matters most. And for me, this idea that this company has eyes and ears, and not eyes and ears just on the ship or the ships throughout the films, but through the droids, looking out for their best interest, which are not the people. And that to me, like the scariest thing in the building is always the humans. It always is. And I think about um, horror films. There's several of us love horror films. I watch horror films all the time. And the scariest things to me in those films are the strange human figures. And this is something we've talked about, and I've talked about quite a bit, where we talk about like Jaws, or we see a shark and we know what a shark looks like, um, and it still terrifies us. And I think what's interesting about this is the presence of man, just the presence of man, the presence of man's greed is the scariest thing in the room. That the greed there is more scary than the alien, because the alien, it's just eventually going to kill you. You might die a slow death, you might be killed instantly, you might be chest bursted, or in Perry's case, ball bursted or dick bursted. Um, but we know these ends, we know where it's going to go, but you do not know what Big Brother is thinking. You don't know where. I mean, but then eventually you don't matter to us. Only what you can produce matters to us. And for me, that has been such a component in the first three Alien films that I continue to go back to, not in the sense of like nostalgia, like, oh, this was better then, but it's really a dominating force, and it's a driver in those films. And I think since Alien 3, we haven't really seen much of that until Romulus. Romulus really reintroduced that. And again, that moment when Rain is at the Weyland-Yutani office and you see the computer and she changes it, that's fucking scary as shit. I mean, like she just fucked over her life. And there's nothing that she can do about it. And that is as scary a moment to me as any face hugger jumping on someone's face. At least there's an end there. Whereas with the company, they want to use you and use you until you die of sickness, or until you die of old age, or your chest bursted, whatever that they can get from you. And yeah, I feel like that component is as alien as everything else as we're talking about.
Can I just say, Jamie, that what you just said, I think sums up, and I'm not trying to get political at all. But that whole discussion with the bear versus the man in the woods? I think you just summed up why a lot of women pick the bear, because we know what the bear is going to do. It sucks. It could kill you, but the man might be a wonderful man, might be a horrific psychopath who's going to torture you and rape you and do all kinds of things before they kill you. So that to me is that's why, that whole analogy comes up, because it's, what is this thing going to do to me? And so that's the exact counter of what I just said, where the known is scary and that unknown is even scarier, right? Which is why I think, yes, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and to that end, like I've been thinking about capitalism, and how, we live in a very capitalistic country, but in a capitalistic society. And the realization that capitalism does not want to feed you, it wants to consume you. Capitalism only cares about what you can produce. And I think that is on full display in those first three films, and then eventually later a little bit in Romulus. And that is fucking terrifying. That terrifies me. And I mean, again, not to get political, but even if we do, sometimes it's okay. We see where this is going. We see, we're in late stage capitalism right now, and we're seeing what it's doing to people. And we're seeing on the Nostromo what it did to that crew, how little that crew mattered, how they were fighting for their lives. And they didn't have to. They didn't have to fight for their lives. All they needed to do. But I do think it's interesting that on the Nostromo, like they saw that it said crew expendable. So at that point, they knew that they were on their own. And again, they could have had this company back them and say, no, no, we love you guys, we care about you guys, get rid of this thing, and they didn't do it.
I find that really cool because I have several like responses to everything that everyone has been saying because it's all stuff that I want to echo. But something in particular that you guys just brought up, Jamie and Andie, it's really fascinating the nefarious aspect of the company as a motif throughout these films. I'm a nurse. I work with insurance companies all the time. It's the same thing. It's just like I'm like begging for my patient to get a certain medication so that she can, be well. And the people who say no, I cannot fathom how they can go to bed at night after doing that. It's that same thing. You don't matter as a human to these companies, these insurance companies. You are a number or you are a cost. And that's how like that aspect, that dread, that evilness comes into our lives right now, and it's really really freaky, especially that like analogy with rain, just getting an arbitrary number of years just added back on because that woman at the window just did it because she knows that Rain is young and healthy and can work more. Here's a technicality. Now you have to do this X number of years before you get free. And then you knew if she stayed and she did that, it would happen again. As long as she is healthy, she is just going to be producing. So that is terrifying. Holden, I wanted to just go back on what you said about character. That's a huge part of what Alien is to me. Um, I love Parker too. He's the best. But you're right. These characters are so, I don't know, they're really breathing our air. They're really like sitting next to us and they're so lived in. And I think I've literally said that before on this podcast. Like these characters are so lived in. They just feel like someone that you already know, someone who has already lived their life. And then they've all come together at this moment on the Nostromo. Um, I'm not bringing too much of the newer films or even Aliens or Alien 3 or Romulus into my what does Alien mean, just because the first film had the biggest influence on me, and I think I should save my comments for that. But I think character and um I don't know, for lack of a better word, like the believability of those people interacting with one another on that ship is probably some of the best, most truthful performances I've seen in film, period. Not just sci-fi film, not just horror film, like period, those people feel like real people. I'll hurry up because I just got like all these ideas from everybody talking, but I thought you guys made such great points. I think about this particular next thing all the time. Patrick, you started it. You talked about patterns, kind of, and like what humans like to recognize and categorize. And we put things in little boxes, right? Because it makes things controllable. Our brains are scientifically programmed to do that. We see a rock and it has certain shadows on it that look like a human face. That rock looks like a face. That looks like a human face. So we automatically do that whether we know it or not. We automatically bring everything concentrically around us and what we deem is normal and safe or unsafe in our reality. And Alien, the xenomorph in particular, takes that away from you immediately. And like you said, you put eyes in it, you anthropomorphize it, but you really don't know what it's going to do. You don't know if you're going to be picked to be impregnated by an overmorph. Like you don't know if you're not an overmorph, obviously a facehugger. But I just think it's fascinating that as humans, we all tend to recognize patterns to make us feel better, to make us feel like we have control, and these movies take that away from us real quick. And I think that's the root terror of the movies. And the last thing I'll say, it's just something that I really love about the movies, is like the truckers in space. Something that I really love about sci-fi in general is that we get these heroes, right? And in Alien, we have the truckers in space, and we have them on the cusp of going home. They just want to go home and party. That's all they want. Like they literally are about to get their paychecks and they're going to go back and get the next job. And that's their life. They have little lives. And then they're sent because of protocol to go investigate this thing. Like they have protocols, but I would bet none of them have done that before. And the fact that they go and everyone kind of steps up is so I don't know, heroic. I think it's just amazing. Like they go investigate the beacon, not knowing what it's going to be, not knowing if it's going to be a colossal waste of time, not knowing if it's going to cause them issues. They don't know if their ship is going to get damaged in the research, all of that. And I find that to be incredibly compelling about these films. And that heroism is what makes Alien Alien for me too. And I will stop talking.
I just want to echo a little bit what the rest of y'all have said, and also add that I think Alien introduced a concept. The first movie specifically introduced a concept to me that I hadn't seen before, which is the corporate villain. We've been blessed with so many great villains throughout film history, like Hugh Keys Byrne as Toe Cutter in Mad Max, Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber in Die Hard. We've had so many great individual villains, especially up to this point. But Weyland-Yutani being introduced as this massive conglomeration that cannot be simply overcame in this one instance. Like Weyland-Yutani isn't a villain that can be defeated in one film. You know what I mean? They're bigger than that. There's much more going on under the behind the scenes that we don't see, that just it introduces a lot of difficulty into that universe and into the lives of our heroes. That just they're again echoing what y'all have said. That sort of capitalistic selfishness and evil and self-absorption. And we Weyland-Yutani just presents this great threat that we had never seen before. And that was something that was so cool to me the first time I watched both Alien and Aliens. It's just it's amazing. It's I think it's something that's very relevant to the way that our world is today. And it's something that was very forthright and forthcoming of the people who penned those ideas, you know?
Also, for the record, Alien came out in a time in the 70s when a lot of these ideas and themes were coming front and center. You know, you had this one film, oh my God, it was with I don't know if it was with Cher or if it was with I can't even remember the other actor's name. Whatever the case is, a lot of those themes were front and center in terms of looking at Big Brother, at government, at all of these industries who were burying Silkwood. Yes, but I think Silkwood was in the 80s. I'm thinking of another one with
Norma Ray,
Norma Ray. I think that one was a little bit earlier. Or was that with
Sally Fields.
Sally Field? Yeah. Anyways, it's one of those. There are many of those.
I've never heard of either one of those
I'm
movies.
old.
Really?
I'm old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the first one? Silkwood?
Silkwood, yeah, is essentially there's an accident that's happening in these factories, and people are just being overlooked. They're just being trampled on, and for production, at any rate. But again, the theme was in the 70s, amongst many themes, calling the government into question in terms of on the heels of the end of Vietnam and our investment there. I mean, which we can see a little bit in Aliens. And I really think these films, the Alien films, are the most powerful when they are engaging these themes. And I know that we talked about, I don't know who mentioned it, saying maybe this is tired, but I don't think that theme is tired. I think especially now when we are under the full weight of capitalism, and we're seeing what's happening, and we're living in a life where people are starting GoFundMe's just to live, just to pay their bills. I mean, it's everywhere. I think probably all of us know someone who has or is trying to raise money to pay bills. Whereas 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we as people in this country could get a job, as you know, one parent could get a job and buy a house and raise their kids. And so that idea, that blue collar theme to me is still very pressing. And it reminds me of, I don't know the specific details, Patrick and Micah, you might know more, or even you, Andie, but there was a healthcare provider recently that had some type of, they were like, well, you're only going to get the anesthesia you need, and then we're going to cut it off. But then because of that healthcare president who was killed, they reversed course. They're like, no, you can have as much anesthesia as you like, because they were scared for their lives. And again, this is the same idea of a company coming in like Weyland-Yutani on the Nostromo and later saying, they're essentially saying, they say it, we don't give a shit about you. And I think we feel that as a nation, as a people, in some fundamental ways. And I think really, as I engage Romulus more and more, I really think that feeling that Fede brought back in his script was really salient and powerful, and I want to see more of it.
Yeah, I think going on that whole theme, I think one of the other things when I again thought a lot about this, it goes along with the loss of innocence, right? And I feel like at the very beginning of Alien, Ripley is kind of naive in a way where she thinks if I follow the rules and I play by the rule, follow the rule book, do all the protocols, everything's going to work out. And she's right in that way, in that they should have been quarantined. But one of her most terrifying moments in the whole film is when she sees the directive from the company with her own eyes, and and the realization that she means nothing to these people sets in. There's a look of utter terror on her face. And I will say, from a personal experience, I'm a high school teacher. I'm not going to mention the school I teach in, but as a science teacher, we have to get trained every 3 years with OSHA on how to keep ourselves safe in terms of dealing with chemicals and stuff like that, because we work in, we do labs. And I don't know how long I had been teaching there, but it was, maybe 5, 6 years in, and the instructors said, like, your school does not care about you. And they meant it not like, oh, the individuals, but they meant it in a way where it's like, if you don't think the air quality is right, they're going to test it and they're going to say it's within the parameters, and it might make you sick as a dog. But if it's in the parameters, they can't do anything. Do you know what I mean? So when that happened, I was like, oh, it was almost like that Ripley moment where I realized I have to look out for myself, right? And it creates this sort of realization where it doesn't matter. Shit's going to go down and they're not going to care. I also liken that moment to the moment in Aliens when Ripley tells Newt, like, oh, they're soldiers, they're going to protect you. And she's like, it won't make any difference. Newt has already lost her innocence at that point. Even though she's the youngest and the little girl, she knows more than they do. And she's like, no, we're all going to die. Like, it doesn't matter. And so I think, you know, that realization, which is kind of what we learn as adulthood unfolds, where we lose that curiosity, we lose that, that belief that everything's going to turn out okay. That's also frightening, right? Look what happens to Kane. He has a childlike sense of curiosity when he goes in there. It's fascinating what he sees, and that's what kills him, And so I just think those themes are, I think every time I think of what these films are about, there's like this new layer to appeal. But I think the loss of innocence is a major one.
Couple things real quick. I want to jump in well said. Loss of innocence is such an important theme, I think, for just a theme for art to portray for people to try to better understand, I think. Um, I just think, yeah, it's really cool. Uh, so before I forget, a couple other films and shows that make me that I find alien in are things like The Thing, The Shining, Stranger Things, Severance. Um, very much has similar qualities, and I just wanted to touch on like some cinematic elements. Patrick, a little while ago, you talked about the xenomorph. Uh, not having eyes, not being able to see, and poop vein too. I just want to touch on, like, I love that when you're a kid, the thing that made Alien Alien was the xenomorph, and I think we all relate to that in a little bit, or at least like the first time that you see this thing. It's very mystifying and intriguing and horrific and beautiful and uh, very Giger-esque, right? Um, and that draws you in, and you are kind of like tunnel visioned into this, like, what is this thing, what is this creature, what, it doesn't act like anything I've ever seen before, that I know about, that I've learned about, that this is like just, you're in awe, in wonder, but you're also just so scared of it that after you saw Alien once, you had nightmares about it, right? And you still have nightmares. I haven't had one in a while, and I've actually been like wishing to have an alien dream again. So hopefully after talking about it tonight, it will happen. So, but anyway, what I loved about that, right, is that there's this wonderment in the creature itself, but it also drives this story, the back end, or should I say, like the world building of the story, because Alien gave us the derelict, that room with all of the eggs that Kane goes into, and then that's it. Like you get sucked out of it so quickly. So while you're watching Alien, at least I was just constantly thinking about that. I'm like, how does this creature procreate? I mean, like, you're obviously seeing the life cycle, but then you're like, why did that ship have so many eggs in it? Where did that ship come from? How this and that, right? And there's a million other questions. And then you're like, and how does the company know about it? And why do they want it? And this drives like this spiraling progression throughout just Alien, but then, Ridley Scott, Fincher, James Cameron, and others like we're able to connect that through to the other films in just such a amazing way that it's just like the perfect recipe for all of these things that we're talking about, right? And it still drives these things forward so that we're still talking about them today, right? I hope all of that is making some sort of sense. But what I love about Alien is that there are so many things that drive other elements in the film. And Ridley Scott showed them to us in a very artistic and cinematic way, uh, that left like such a deep impression on us and informed how we consumed art, and cinema and things like that ever since, you know? And that is one thing that makes Alien Alien for me. But that I also look for in uh other media, but like the other films and shows that I'd mentioned. And when you see that in those other films and shows, at least for us, you're like, oh yes, like this is hitting in a place that you want to progress further into. So, boom, mic drop. No, I don't know.
We'll cut this from the episode. Perry, you should take a look at our Zoom chat when you get a chance.
Oh,
I had to
great.
go off camera for a second.
Great. Made fun of me the whole time. Okay.
No. Going back to the YouTube chat for a moment. So Robbie Rendy has a great point. He says, what makes an alien film an alien film? The dichotomy of what it means to be human, both just and evil, in alien spaces meeting the uncanny ancient cosmic horrors that lay in the dark forest of space. I gotta say, our chat tonight is very literate. Like, you got some wonderful similes going on. Really appreciate it. Metaphors. Um, I've been thinking a little bit also about, to that point, the cosmic horror aspect, which isn't something that I necessarily find scary on its own. Like, I'm a pretty big Lovecraft fan. Borderline aficionado. Uh, it's tough because, I'm in the company of people who know more about him than I do, and of course, our dear friends like Christian know essentially everything about him. But I like Lovecraft, and I've read basically everything he's written, except for the letters. And his work, to varying degrees, genuinely scares me. But for the most part, it doesn't, because the whole cosmology thing, it's sort of like, I can read it as kind of fantasy. What does scare me, though, is when it becomes like just believable enough to be unsure if what I'm seeing is like cosmological or not. This is a long way of getting around to like thinking about other things that have scared me. So a great example is in a Lovecraft thing, which is The Color Out of Space. A lot of stuff in the story itself is very scary, but in the film adaptation that was made maybe like 7 years ago, 6 years ago, which is fantastic.
With Nick
Um,
Cage.
yeah, with Nick Cage, who's I
Yes.
think very good in it.
The one and
Um,
only.
there's one particular sequence that I won't spoil, but it scares me a lot every time. And it's just this thing. I'm sure you probably know what I'm talking about if you're listening to this, where like I just did not expect it to happen. Like, it's not in the story. It fits like thematically with what's happening, but it's like very, very, very messed up. And you're stuck with it for a long time. Like, it's something that kind of deteriorates and stays persistently for a lot of the movie and is just continually hard to deal with. That's scary because like I don't know how that gets resolved. Like, it doesn't seem like something that can be resolved. Like, that gets disturbing to me. The first season of Stranger Things, I thought was like some of the scariest shit I'd ever seen when that first came out. I saw the first episode of Stranger Things very high with a friend of ours, and I was like, this is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. I rewatched it like the next day, not high, and I was like, okay, it's not that scary, but it's still scary. And the reason why is because by that point, there's no like mythology to put it into. Like, there's no, oh, again, maybe I'm just not like a hierarchy person, right? Like, we didn't have any idea there was like a Vecna coming or a Mind Flayer coming or an Abyss coming or any of the things that went on to become really wonderful to the story. But to make things feel a little more kind of understandable, it's like, to defeat this, we have to defeat the bad guy. We have to find these things and use these weapons and get out. And, and this is why, Hawkins' lab was just this kind of gateway point. It wasn't really where everything was coming from. In the first season of Stranger Things, like, we don't know any of that. We have no idea what's happening. And in that first episode, which I still think really holds up as a piece of like horror sci-fi filmmaking, we just have no clue like what was in the road. We don't know what is going to get Will. Like, we have no idea what they saw. It's just these wonderful series of unknown elements. And I think that is something that scares me when I don't know what is happening. Again, and I brought this up in the last episode, but part of why Covenant speaks to me so much is because it has moments like that in it where I just don't know. And the first time I saw it, I really felt like this sense of the ground had kind of dropped out and I was hovering over this abyss all of a sudden. I find that very, very frightening. And I think when Alien for me works best, it really lingers in those moments. And again, something that's come up a couple of times tonight, both in here and in the chat, is body horror. I think that's something that is really significant and really important to Alien. And I think, we sometimes kind of shy away from it because we think, oh, people have seen chest burstings a lot. They know what it's like, when somebody's face hugged, like, it's gross and blah, 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 blah. But like, to linger in the sensation of what that's like is really, really scary. And so whenever people say things like the beast is cooked, and by people, I mean, Ridley Scott, I'm always like, it's not. It's just, if you handle it like it's a casual mythology, if you handle it like it's something people already have the rubric to, Of course it's not going to be scary. Who's going to be scared about a bear? Like, to Andy's point, right? We know what a bear is going to do. A bear is going to kill us or it's going to run away, but like that's kind of it, right? um Alien is at its best when we just don't know what's coming. Like, we just don't know what's happening. And I think Dane and Matt's concept art for Alien Covenant was even scarier than the movie was. And I still think Covenant is the scariest Alien film since the original movie. I really think Covenant's a genuinely frightening film at a lot of points. I think the concept art was so scary. All of those images of Shaw being, worked on and mutated and surgically altered, like that really got to me a lot. That sounded like I think you should leave for a second there. It really bothered me. It
I
got to me a
almost said it.
lot.
I couldn't. I almost.
And like the little leaks that happened, and like when 20th Century was putting out artwork from it, I was like, oh man, I couldn't stop thinking about how scary it was. And David's drawings is one of my favorite things ever released for Alien. I love that book. I'm so grateful I got a copy of it because I go back to it a lot. That's why I share a lot of art to our socials from it. I think it's so scary, and I just really want future Alien projects to take us back to that. Like, I want to linger in the sense of dread and to linger in the sense of unknown possibilities, good and bad, and to linger in the sense of this is genuinely scary shit. It's not something that we already have all the answers to. So, like, drag the question out and make us unsure of where we're headed.
By the end of Alien Earth, the beast was cooked.
Boo.
I resent that, Jamie.
Okay. I think about again, I keep going to real world scenarios, but in the movie Aaron Brockovich, where there's the town Hinckley, and she goes into town, and everybody in the town is sick, and the company PG&E has been paying for some medical bills here and there, looking like they're doing the right thing by these people, and then Aaron Brockovich does more digging and more digging, and they find out that hexavalent chroma, whatever it's called, the that compound that's in the water, isn't just it's not really killing them. It is, but it isn't. It's ravaging their bodies, ravaging their bodies. And the company knew the whole time. They knew the whole time, and they were just covering up. And you think like that is more evil than any creature that you could possibly design or imagine.
Well, look at
That
Philip Morris, you know?
um Philip Morris. Oh yeah, yeah. Um and I think, personally speaking, and I'd love to know everyone else's thoughts on this, but like I feel like Alien is an alien without the component of the scariest creature on the planet, which is humanity. And I think about like times when you hear about or read about or maybe even experience when something happens to you by the hand of another person, and how terrifying that is. Like, you think about people that little, you think about humanity that little, that you do this to them. You think about children this little, that you let this happen or you allow this to happen. Like, I saw this documentary last week called Evil Influencer about Jody Hildebrandt, the Mormon life coach, whatever. Eventually, it's just whatever. Long story short, her and the mother of these two kids end up really abusing these children. And I just think this is what we're capable of, and we're more capable of horrible things than any animal that I know, because animals aren't concerned unless they're rabid and crazy. And even if they're rabid and crazy, they're just going to kill you or they're going to maim you. They're not interested in making you work for them or taking your money, or like harvesting things from you. They just either want your food or they want you dead, or they'll run away because they don't care. And so, but to think about the human in this situation, like, I really feel like going forward, that that element has to be present in these shows, for really not to give it weight so much, but to bring it home so that we can connect. Because sure, I connect with the creatures, all that stuff is cool, but to a point that you were making, Patrick, like that oblivion, it's interesting. There's elements of it are terrifying, but it becomes more terrifying when there's something else there who wants something more from you than just nothing, than just oblivion. We don't want you dead. We want you to expend yourself as much as possible so that we can profit off of it.
I want to swoop in for 1 second and just do one more recommendation about something I've been thinking of that scared me recently, which is the first episode of Pluribus, right? Which is a show that makes its rules pretty apparent by the end of the first episode. But before you get there, there's this period where I was like, this is kind of scaring the shit out of me right now. And it's because we just don't know like what's happening. So I had that in my head. I wanted to make sure I get that out there because people who are looking for that feeling, a la Severance, like Perry was saying too, Pluribus is a good recommendation, at least the first episode.
Watch the rest tonight.
We got to play Chronos though, Jamie.
We have to play Chronos, so sorry.
We have to play Chronos.
Such is our calling.
Kronos is fucking
Such is our calling.
amazing. I cannot get over how cool that atmosphere is.
Just
so
wait,
good.
Holden. Oh my
If you want to hear
God.
us talk more about it,
Yeah.
join our Patreon
For sure.
And you don't have to pay the $12 a month thing for that. You can get it for anything. There's some really
40.
good there's some really good comments in the chat also if anybody wants to go back.
40 to shut us up about it.
40 to shut Patrick up about it. I'm kidding.
It's impossible.
Well, that feels like it's a good place to wrap the show, unless anyone else has anything to say. I think that was it's great to be back with everyone in this new year. We'll see what this year brings, but I'm excited. There's a lot going on with us, the show, and it's the 40-year anniversary of Aliens. We have a new series titled by Andie, 40 Years of Bad Road, which we're going to be launching later in the year. Really exciting. But before we sign off, we're going to shout out to our producers of our show.
Let's do it. And I remembered too, Jamie. Oh, thank you for the reminder because I was just sorting by tier and I was like, we're gonna nail this. We're doing this every single time from now on. So thank you so much to our producers, Sean Mullen, Sethicus 0480, Andrew Roseberry, Jessica M. Kandal, PhD, Murray Kucherawi, Casey Knopp, Zachary Rice, Nathan Gribble, Patrick Ayub, Darren Gold, Mark Deckard, Jonas Holmsten, Dave Turner, Gene McDonald, Perry Chicos, Chris Murphy, Matthew Bro, Carl McLean, Joseph Rosner, and Dan Arnott, the Norwegian psychologist, and Deal With It. And you know what? I don't know. Hang on. This might be including inactive patrons. Give me 1 second. This is the miracle of editing. Although the YouTube audience might not get this. Yeah, okay, there's not quite that many. I'm gonna go back. Thank you so much to our producers, Jordan, Sky Errand, Hudson's Extra Life. Oh my God, hang on. I lost the sorting again. This is so complicated. I swear this will get better. Okay. Pledge amount, active.
I believe in you.
Okay. Active, paid, lifetime. Okay. Thank you so much to our thank you so much to our producers, Algeriat, Ola Steinis, Murray Kucherawi, Gene McDonald, Matthew Bro, Gary Smith, Zarnold Quigley, Nick Carmichael, Darren Gold, Jonas Holmsten, Perry Chicos, Joseph Rosner, Deal With It. That's the name. Deal With It. Although you also have to deal with it. Vincent Harris, Ross Yost, Weed, Jeff Deloff, Zeno Nick, Eric Poopvane Stevens, Carl Hinkst, Chris B., Jeremiah White, Justin Baker, Weyland-Yutani, Distinguished Engineer, Angel Cruz, Jordan, Brazen God, Sky Errand, and I have to do conversions on this because I don't know if this is, we'll give them anyway. Dave Turner, Carl McLean, and G. Latorre Yates. Thank you so much to our producers. You guys are amazing.
Awesome.
Terry.
Thanks, everybody.
Executive producer.
Harry.
We love you guys and we're so grateful and we're so happy to see so many of you in the chat. This has been so fun and please join us. We do these every other week and we'd love to keep talking to you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.